We are looking at the translation exercises that go along with the drills for chapter 26, and we're going to begin over here with 2 Kings chapter 20 verse 19. I'll go ahead and read that. Vayomer Hizkiyahu el Yeshayahu Tov Devar Adonai Esher Dibarta. We begin this with Vayomer, and that is a vav consecutive. We recognize the vav consecutive immediately because we have a vav with a patak underneath it, and we have a doubled first letter. And that means that we have an imperfect. It's a vav consecutive imperfect. And so we have, it's a irregular form, but it's a kal imperfect, third masculine singular of Amar. And so it means, and he said. Here we have Hizkiyahu, masculine singular subject, which goes with our third masculine singular verb. So we have and Hezekiah said, and then El Yeshayahu, to Isaiah. And so what comes after that is what he said, what Hezekiah said to Isaiah in response to Isaiah's prophecy. Here Isaiah prophesied of the coming destruction of the nation of Judah, only it would come after the time of Hezekiah. We see what Hezekiah says. He says, Tov, Devar Adonai, Esher, this is then our relative clause, and then Debarta. Tov, Devar Adonai. So we have here an indefinite, and then we have Devar Adonai. Here we have a proper name, and so that's going to be definite. Devar becomes definite because it's in a construct package with the definite Adonai. So we have Devar Adonai becomes the word of the Lord, or the word of Yahweh. And so we know that since this is definite, we have a predicative adjective here, and so we have to supply an is. Good is the word of the Lord. And then we have our relative, and part of the reason for chapter 26 is to review relative clauses. So we have which, and then we have our final verb here. We can parse that. It is from the box. We have a Hirik, a doubled second root letter. So Hirik under the first root letter, doubled second root letter, and then we have a perfect ending. And so we're going to have a PL perfect to MS. So we have you have spoken. So let's put it all together. We have, and Hezekiah said to Isaiah, good is the word of the Lord, or the word of the Lord is good, which you have spoken. Okay, let's go ahead and look at Jeremiah 29 verse 7, the second verse here. I'll go ahead and move this up a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. V'dirshu et shalom ha'ir esher hagaleti etkem shema. V'hitpalalu be'adah el Adonai ki bishloma yihyeh lakem shalom. Okay, went through that kind of slowly. So we have V'dirshu, and we saw that as one of our parsing exercises. In this case, we know from context that we are continuing on in a letter that Jeremiah wrote to the captives in Babylon, and it contains the instructions of Yahweh to the people. We have a couple of possibilities here. This could be a PAL perfect, third common plural, this verb right here, because the resh would not double in any case. It acts as a guttural, and so we can't double that. But because we know that we're already in a passage where God is talking to the people, we can look at the other option here, cal imperative, masculine plural, of darash, which is to seek. And so we're basically looking at an instruction here. And seek et shalom. We know that shalom is peace or welfare. We have seek peace, but we have two nouns stuck together, which makes us suspect a construct. Seek peace of, and then we have the city, and so this becomes then the peace of the city, because this is definite. So we have seek, direct object marker et, the peace of the city, asher, and here's our relative again, asher, higleti. We've seen a few of these, but we won't look at this type of verb, gala, down here until later in the semester. But when the hey is your third root letter, oftentimes that translates into a yod. We have a hifil here, but it's not hifil because of the hirik yod. Notice we have a sere yod, not a hirik yod. And so that sere yod is something different than the normal hifil hirik yod between a second root letter and a third root letter. If we look at our strong verb form of this, hiktalti, notice that we don't have a hirik yod in the first common singular anyway, and so this yod is doing something else. The yod is actually representing the hey from the verb. We won't be looking at that till later, but just a warning that as we parse this, notice that we see the hey with a hirik and the t ending, which tells us that we're probably looking at a hifil perfect. Anyway, I gave you that one. So we have higleti, and that is I exiled. Now notice if we go through this literally, which I exiled, etkem, you plural, masculine plural, shema, to there. So let's take a look at that, just literally writing this out. Which I exiled you to there. We would say that in English, to which I exiled you. We call this a resumptive, in this case a resumptive adverb. We also talk about resumptive pronouns, very common in Hebrew. The textbook calls these retrospective adverbs and also talks about retrospective pronouns. Many grammars call them resumptive adverbs and resumptive pronouns, however. And that's what I tend to call them. Where the which comes way before the thing that it's going to be connected to in English. So here we say, which I exiled you to there. We would say, to which I exiled you. Or possibly, where I exiled you. Either one would be fine in English. This is the idea in chapter 26 of a resumptive adverb, or as the book calls it, a retrospective adverb. Reading the first part of that then, seek the welfare of the city to which I exiled you. And we move on now. Vahit palalu. We have what looks like palal here. We sort of try to pick our root out if we can. And the hit in front of us is telling us hithpael. It could be two things. It could be a perfect third common plural, or it could be an imperative. In this case, in the sentence, we're still following on from an imperative. We're going to call this a hithpael imperative. And so we have and pray, command, and pray, ba'ada. So here we have on behalf of, and then the pronominal suffix, and on behalf of her or it feminine. Well, what is that referring back to? That's a good question. It says seek the welfare of the city. In this case, city is feminine. And now it says over here, pray on its behalf. Pray on behalf of it. And so the feminine pronominal suffix here is referring back to city. Pray for it, El Adonai, to Yahweh, to the Lord. Ki, Bishloma, and again we have in her peace, or in its peace, again referring back to the city. Yihyeh, will be, lachem will be to you shalom, will be to you welfare. Or we might be able to say as a sort of a possessive, you will have welfare. Sometimes when we say something will be to you in Hebrew, we're saying that you have something. And so you say, for in its peace you will have peace, or peace will be to you. Pray for it, or pray on behalf of it, meaning the city, to Yahweh, to the Lord, for in its peace will be your peace, or peace to you, or in its peace you will have peace. So let's read the whole thing. And seek the welfare of the city to which I exiled you, and pray for it to the Lord, for in its peace you will have peace. That's the first two of our translation exercises.